Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, Vivian, how are you?
Morning.
Okay. Mm, Hi, Daisy.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine, fine. A little tired because it's Friday. Okay. Well, I think we will start. Today we have two special guests, Laura Sofía Restrepo and Paula Cáceres. Laura, hola Laura, bienvenida.
Hola, buenos días.
And
Hi, good morning.
part of this session, we are going to talk a little about how we can write using your field work and concepts and methodologies. Okay, this is the goal of the first part of the session. Secondly, Laura and Paula will be to present an example, their example about sorry. Their experience actually in writing some chapters about a collective, a collaborative project here in Colombia with Indigenous women. And in the last part of the session, we are going to work in small groups about your own materials, okay? Well, I don't know if it's possible for the participants to open the camera. I am so happy to see you. Okay, thank you. Well, bueno, bienvenida Paula, bienvenida
Welcome, Paula. Welcome, Laura.
I don't know if you want
No sé si
to
quieren
present,
presentar.
Laura, si te quieres presentar.
I don't know if,
Para que las
Laura, if you want to introduce yourself so that they know you before we start. Oh, yes, of course. Well, good morning. My name is Laura Restrepo. Like teacher Angela said, I am a graduate of the sociology project from University of Rosario, and I've been working with teacher Angela for 3 years with the Indigenous Intercultural Center. I'm from Bogota, the capital of Colombia, and I've worked with the process of indigenous children, local education, with an ethical perspective and gender perspective, from the perspective of family, women, and generation.
Bienvenida, Laurita.
Welcome, Laura.
Paula, ¿quieres presentarte?
Laura, do you want to introduce yourself? Yes, of course. Well, good morning to all the sisters. I'm really happy to be here because teacher Angela has spoken to us a lot about you. She admires you very much. And so to be here with you is very valuable. My name is Paula Cáceres, and I'm also part of the teamwork, of the team that works with teacher Santa Maria, and my role has been the project management. So it's weaving all the process, the community process, and the territory process with the dimensions and the processes that the students live within the university. And During these last 3 years, I have been working specifically with Indigenous women and projects associated to the geared towards the mitigation of sexual violence from an intercultural context. So from there is that I'm going to speak to you today.
Bueno, muy bienvenida, Paula. Entonces, aquí
Welcome,
en la parte de abajo, como
Paula.
siempre,
Here at the bottom, however you
puedes
feel most comfortable,
hablar en
if
español,
you
en
want to speak
inglés,
in Spanish or in
y
English,
aquí abajo a mano derecha hay como un
here at the bottom,
planeta,
at
creo,
the right, we have like a
ay, no sé
planet.
qué es, como una
Oh, I don't
bolita,
know what it is. Like a little
dice
ball
interpretación, ahí también
where it says
pueden,
interpretation,
pueden
and you can
usarla si lo desean.
use that there as well.
Okay. Good
Okay.
evening, good afternoon, Donan. How are you? Bueno, we are going to start with the contents for today. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is the session number 4, sorry, and we are going to work in data analysis and how we can organize and present the results and the process, okay? The objective is to elaborate the analysis plan and to present some data and the data collection process. First of all, I want to share with the group an example. Yes, this is an example about my contribution in the big project with Paula and Laura and others participants as Leslie and Cielo. I think perhaps you should remember the participation of Leslie and Cielo. I don't know, perhaps in the second session of the module number 5. Okay, we are working together in a big project about legal advocacy and political advocacy against Indigenous women violence and environmental and reproductive justice. Okay, and this is a little example of how we can write. Okay, the title of this project is a sort of a small project in the big project. Okay, my perspective, I am working specifically with Laura Restrepo about the protection and the restoration and reparation of sacred sites of Indigenous women, and the protection and reparation and restoration about bodies, territories, and lands. Okay. And my interest is to understand and to promote and to visualize the ritual dance, yes, in dialogue with an interesting perspective of dance, movement, and therapy, and this concept is not the concept of Indigenous women. But I think it's an interesting concept to understand in intercultural perspective ritual dance. This concept is authentic movement. Okay, here we have two different concepts. In one hand, ritual dance, and in other hand, authentic movement. Okay. And here, after an interesting encounter with the participant of more than, I think, 40 people in Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta, I was here, sitting here in my office, in my house, and I need to think, how can I write about this incredible experience, okay? And for the beginning, it is important to identify the place, the time, the participants and actors, and the feeling, thinking, experiences and elements, okay? As we know, we are working with ancestors, yes, with mothers and fathers in a spiritual level, with non-human entities and subjectivities as rivers, mountains, territories, etc. And we can too identify this kind of identities, okay? Here, for example, I am starting with yes, the place and this entity, no, this sacred site, Guadalupe Hill, because in this kind of writing and projects, the mountains has an important place in the writing process. Okay. Somebody could help me to read the first paragraph, please.
Profe, es que no se ve muy bien la pantalla. ¿Puedes poner usar presentación con diapositivas? A ver si... Es que la vemos chiquita. La vemos como...
Ya sé eso, espérate.
We see it very small on our side, sorry, so we can't read it.
Voy a dejar de compartir.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Ahora se ve la pantalla.
Now can you see my
Está
screen?
cargando.
It's still loading, teacher.
Es que la vemos como tú la
Oh,
estás viendo
yeah.
en presentación.
But yes,
We
no,
see it very small.
Y si pones usar presentación con diapositivas, que es el botoncito de arriba,
Or if we say share with a presentation with slides,
ahí más
right there,
a
right
la
there,
izquierda,
more to the left,
arriba, en esas opciones
at the
de...
top, in those
¿Dónde
options,
dice más?
which says more.
Dice
No.
esquina superior izquierda, finalizar presentación, sugerencias, cambiar de pantalla y usar presentación con diapositivas. De pronto, esa de usar presentación con diapositivas.
¿Dónde estás viendo todo eso? Yo no veo eso.
Ah, no sé, no sé tú qué ves.
Espérate, a ver. Ay, Señor bendito. Y no sé por qué me sale esto así. Hacer, volver. Ay, creo que ya. ¿Mejor?
yes.
Yes? Okay. 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 Yes? It is okay?
No, no. It's not to be like that again, teacher.
Oh no. Sorry. And now? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Somebody want to help me to read the first paragraph?
I can read it.
Thank you, Mona.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I love this. This sounds- Dancing and singing to reconnect with healing. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. In August 2023, we performed a ritual dance on Guadalupe Hill. The dance was led by Saga Josefa Alberto from the Ayumal community. We were, I have to move. We were accompanied by two leaders of the SNSM and Victorian Neuta, ooh, a city mayor of the Muisca people. We danced for an hour from 7 a.m. at the sacred site, which was also a historical place for spiritual pilgrimage. Uh, it's, it's We sought to harmonize sexual violence and prayed for the mitigation of sexual violence against women and girls in our territories. Thus, we entered dialogue with the fundamental tenet of dance movement therapy, the existence of a relationship between physical and physical movement and psychological dynamics. Affirms that integrating mind and body evokes unconscious psychological material and releases deeply held emotions, reconnecting them through movement, dance, or body awareness. For Saga Merihilda Molina, the body territory mind integration is also necessary for working with sexual violence. Ritual dance seeks precisely mm, to heal and integrate. Xiang also asserts that the process of externalization turns internal feelings into wait, tangible movements and sensations. The ability to embody healing actions and experience the conscious choice to move is vital to the alleviation of the abuse suffered by victims. That's it.
Can you continue? Because I think the next part is the most important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. In the words of grandmother, to survive, music and dance must be preserved. Birds and insects sing and dance to be happy, to live well. In the same way, dance and song harmonize us with nature. By dancing and singing in my language, the mana, to Abu Bunkumena at the sacred site of Guadalupe as the major feminine hill in the territory of Bacata, we ask her that violence against women, girls and women be reduced. She has all the strength to make it stop. Huh? I think, is that it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Daman. It's
Wow.
so beautiful to hear you talking about these incredible women and rituals. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful story.
Okay, this is a little example of how we can write, okay? It's not like like the only way is my way, okay? You are free to use this example as you want. But perhaps it's important to this question of identification of places, time, participants, human and non-human participants. Okay, as you can see, we have, for example, I am writing about a specific cultural practices, okay? And in my case, and I think perhaps for many of you, it is important to establish a dialogue with some researchers, okay, in the world, because I think as Lorena told us, to be an actor of the decolonization research and intercultural research, it is important to talk and to have a dialogue with the concepts and perspectives which we are going to criticize, okay? In this case, for example, this incredible perspective of dance, movement, and therapy in the world doesn't have an intercultural perspective. And perhaps our collaborative work with Indigenous women from Wiwa people is the first text. This text is the first article in the world of dance movement therapy talking about about the intercultural perspective. And in this sense, I want to encourage you to establish this kind of revolutionary act, no? Here, for example, when Saga Merehilda Morilina is talking about body, territory, mind, and she is talking about ritual dance as healing and integrated process of restoration and reparation in the Colombian context of peace jurisdiction perspective, she is proposing a female cosmo-knowledge in the center, no? And at the same time, as a researcher at my university, for us, it is important to talk with some intellectuals. And for example, Shang is an interesting Asian Indigenous women. And for me, is only a political act to write about her, no, and to use her work. And finally, the last part is a little example of how you can use, for example, your field work or your field diary, your notes, okay? But it is possible, for example, here to use videos, pictures, poems, etc. Okay, drawings, paintings, dance, songs, etc. Okay, this is a little example of how we can work in a specific example. Okay. Do you have some questions or comments about this first part? Hola, Samay, buenos días.
Hi, Sarmai. Good morning.
Hola, Ángela,
Qué
compañera.
bueno, qué bueno verte.
Good morning. Good morning,
De la
sister.
Revolución Ecuatoriana.
Mhm.
Ok, bienvenida.
Welcome.
I don't know, do you have some comments, some questions about this moment in your process? Because I think you have a lot of materials, you have a lot of data, and perhaps it's not easy, no? This moment is not easy. How can I do with all these materials, ideas, experiences, feelings, because I need to, it's like an impossible work, no? To reduce all these experience in a small page, and sometimes it's scary, but at the same time is amazing. I don't know if somebody want to share, because I know, for example, Doman had shared the last session, but I don't know if somebody else want to share before to go to the other part of the session. Vivian, she's not here, but she sent me some materials. I think Vivian, Vivian or Daisy, I don't know, or Nina. Somebody want to share? Oh, Jessie, Liz, Samai, Mimint. Nobody? Okay, well, we are going to come back to the presentation, okay? Mm, And I have here an interesting example of a representative from Cameroon. She's can you see my screen? Yes?
Sí.
Okay. Well, this is the project of one of the representative. She's Ibrahim Fatimatu Adamu Yusufa. The study is the title of the study. No, sorry. The title is The Sociocultural Impediment on the Education of the Mororo Girls Child of the Northwest and West regions of Cameroon. And the intercultural researcher is Fadimatu Adamu Yusufa. Yes, she was, I think, in September 2022. Yes, and this is an example of her last presentation. Okay, I don't know where she present her project, because I don't know, but she was the representative of Cameroon. Okay. This is the chapters. Okay. Today we are going to work about your chapters, because for Dunen is so important to have this product. Dunen, no sé si quieres explicarles la
I don't
necesidad.
know if you want to explain to them the need that you have to access these chapters. Dunen.
Okay. Well, for Dunen and
Para
the
Dunen y el equipo de FIMI es
example, Jessie, Jenny Lynn, Elise and Samai. I think you have your executive's summary, but I am not sure that the Asian and African regions have your executive summary of chapters, okay? Today, in the small groups, we are going to do this homework for Dunet, okay? In her case, for example, she has the introduction, yes, the first part, as you know, as you can see, in her case, is something like some pages, okay? Secondly, she has the description of research location, the justification of the study, objectives, literature review, conceptual framework, scope of the research, methodology, and 2 chapters, okay? In her case, she has only 2 chapters. The first chapter is about sociocultural impediment, and the last chapter is about advocacy plan for the education of the Moromboro child. This is her executive summary, okay? This is the abstract of the project. I don't know if somebody could help me to read this part.
Yes,
All
can
right,
you read?
let me read.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
Executive summary. Even though some few Bororo women are educated and are role models with the Bororo community and the society at large, culture play a dominant role with regard to the education of the Bororo girl child in Cameroon. In summary, the major factors that hamper the education of the Bororo girl child discovered in the course of this research are wife subordination to their husband, prevent them from continuing school once married. The need to prevent indecency among Bororo girls. Need to prevent indecency among Bororo girls cause many parents to withdraw their children from school and send them out for marriage. Early and forced marriages are major practice by many Bororo communities to crop down sexual promiscuity and unwanted pregnancy. In addition, priorities is always given to the reproduction of children and pregnancy. In always unwanted pregnancy. In addition, priority is always given to the reproduction of children immediately women are married, and automatically they are plugged into responsibilities for catering of the children, and going to school is not given the priority it deserves.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. I am so happy to hear you reading your representative from your country. And I
Thank
think
you.
it's really near to your project, no? What do you
Yes,
think?
yes,
What
exactly. Yes, it's the same. Yes, the same. Yes,
uh,
thank you.
okay, yes, I choose this project for you because I think it is important for you to have this the example. And what do you think is the difference, the principal difference in your project? Can you explain a little about the difference, or perhaps your personal perspective in dialogue with this proposal?
Okay, the one I'm having with this one, this lady wrote.
Okay, okay. Now I want to present you the first some of her concepts, and perhaps for Fatima and for everyone, it is important to think which are my concepts, my principal concepts. Okay, for her, as you can see in the chapter number 1, she has three principal concepts, okay? Wife subordination, prevention of indecency, and early and forced marriage, okay? Do you want to explain a little, I don't know for the rest of the group, but for me, for example, perhaps I can have a little idea about a wife subordination, but perhaps I want to ask you what is prevention of indecency, for example, is not easy to imagine for me. Can you perhaps explain a little about these specific concepts and why she choose these principal concepts, Fatima?
Are you talking about the wife subordination, prevention of indecency, and early and forced marriages, or which one?
As you want. You can choose one, two, or if you want, you can talk about both.
All right, like the wife subordination, they say in all the 4 communities visited, the need of wife subordination, total respect and obedience of their husband, even though the screen, I'm not seeing everything. Like, especially us, the Mororos, when you are married, no matter what, no matter the situation, you have to abide and respect your husband, and you have to do whatever he asks you to do to show the respect and the love you have for him. Prevention of the intensity. There is the fear that school will expose the girl child to intense dressing and weaken her sense of decency during. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing all the full screen, so the reason I cannot read everything this way. The side on my right.
Okay, okay. No, but you are reading very well.
All right. Like in our own cases, most of the thing they always get fear of sending the ladies to school. It's like they fear if they go to school, they are going to copy this the wildlife. They'll not be dressing like the Muslims again, and they'll not be respecting their husbands, or they're even afraid that they cannot be like when the ladies are the women are working to be collecting more salaries than the husbands. Early and forced marriage. The Mororo people claim that the rationale of early and forced marriage is to prevent sexual promiscuity and unwanted pregnancy. So the reason they always like at the age of 13, 14, 15 marriages, when someone is at the puberty age, the parents just get out the daughter for marriage because they don't want her to get pregnant, like to give birth out of love. So the reason they always give them out for marriages.
Okay, okay. And it sounds familiar for you in your project?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can perhaps, if you want, I can share with you the final report of this project.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I would be yes, I'll be very happy. Please just share to me through WhatsApp. I'll write to you, so you just send it to me.
Okay, and this is a beautiful practice because you can write using her work, no, and you can introduce the reference of this project, and
Yes.
yes, is interesting. Okay, thank
No, it's
you.
interesting. Thank you. Yes, I'll write it. Thank you.
No, thank you to you. This is the first chapter, okay? And she has another kind of concepts, for example, prioritization of reproduction following early marriage, okay, religious misinterpretation, no violation of parents' will. And here, as we can see, she proposed another kind of concepts, okay? Poverty, lack of means to pay for girls' child's education, understanding the value of education, and prioritizing other income-generating activities over formal education. No? As we can see, for example, Lorena insists the importance to talk about the whole history, the oppression, and at the same time, the agency and resistance of Indigenous women. No? And I think this is one of the strategy of this research, okay? She has the chapter number 2, and her chapter is about advocacy plan for the education of the Moroboro girl child, okay? Do you remember we worked in, I think, in the last session about this activity? And Nukila, go on, please.
Thank you. I just want to ask the question to regarding the first slide regarding child early marriage and forced marriage. What made this research combine early and forced marriage in the one course? Is it the same earlier marriage with the forced marriage in this regard? So that's my this it comes from in my mind what makes this in one cluster, because I believe that early marriage is only is happen for the girls under 18 years old, but forced marriage, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is because of the, let's say, like a marriage arrangement or something like that, or because of the economic factor or something like that.
Okay.
That's my question.
This is a good question, yes, because you can choose. I think it depends. Now I want to ask Fatima, because it depends. If you want to establish the difference, okay, it's not the same. It's two kind of different practices. You can choose to, for example, divide, okay, and to write a section about early marriage and another section to forced marriage. I don't know why she chose to establish the connection between both, but you are free, okay, in your case, but because you are working about this kind of practices, no, Nukila? I don't know why she do you have an idea, Fatima, how she put together early and forced marriage in the same concept?
Well, actually, I thought she was to separate it because early marriage is different from forced. Early marriage, when they give you marriage at early stage. The forced marriage is when they make you to get married without your own willingness.
Okay, you agree with Nukila. Perhaps you have a similar perspective, but
Yes.
yes, perhaps she has a reason. We don't know why,
Yeah,
but
for sure. We don't know.
but this is an important question, because when you are planning the writing plan, it is important to think in a conceptual terms, okay? Samay, te escuchamos.
Pensando en los dos conceptos,
Thinking about the two concepts, I can connect with the author because in the context where she writes, maybe even though in other places there could be different concepts, they're interconnected. So it's even though she's a girl that is young, that she's getting married, but she's getting married against her will, even though she says yes because of tradition, I would love to get married, and it might seem that it's voluntary, but she's still a girl, so it still is something forced and she's still a girl. So for me, I think it's completely engulfing these two problematics. when you have these kinds of marriages. So in that perspective, I can understand why it's important to say that they're linked, but I think it would have been important to relate them and say, explain why.
¿Cierto? Porque fíjate que ahora que lo pienso,
Very,
la cooperación internacional,
very important, because now that I think about it, the international cooperation and their agencies,
¿sí? E imagino que
they
puede
bring
ser
together these concepts.
hasta por un tema no conceptual, como tú lo
And
dices, en
even
muchos casos. Recuerdo cuando Dunán
in the
nos
concept
hablaba de
perspective, I remember when Dunan was talking to us
y de
about
cómo las
political
instituciones
incidents and
quieren
how
ayudar,
the institutions want to save
¿no?
their
A
investment.
veces pienso,
And sometimes I feel, I don't know if maybe
conspiracy
this is from a perspective of
que
conspiracy theories, where they bring everything together
unos ciertos,
to establish
unos
some
recursos y tú dices,
resources, and you say at the same time, there's a possibility and the strength where you see intersectionality of these practices and these ways of vulnering or creating vulnerability of rights, and there's a possibility of a stronger action.
Y lo que es muy interesante es que, claro, lo conceptual y cómo organizo
And the
la
concept
escritura
and how I organize it
mi intención política, ¿no?
is defining my political intention.
Y en el caso de ustedes, la construcción de ese plan de incidencia que van a hacer.
And it depends on how you're going to build that incidence plan. That's super important. Thank you.
Bueno.
Okay.
Well, this is the other chapter. I think, as you remember, I think not at the individual perspective, but we work about a regional advocacy plan. Okay. In her case, she chose strategy, activity, action, time frame, okay, responsibility, collaborator, and means of verification, okay? I don't know if somebody want to read the first example of the advocacy plan of Boro Boro advocacy plan for the education. Nobody?
Can read.
Yes.
Thank you, Mimi.
Okay. Okay. The barrier towards moral girl child education is summarized above, and we need an advocacy plan that can override the barrier to enable moral girl enjoy her fundamental rights, which is non-negotiable. We also saw the consequences of lack of education of the moral girl children's ending up in misery. However, some advocacy plans were arrived at to promote friendly, flexible, and attainable actions that can drive the moral girl child education. If implemented or put into practice by this community, it will go a long way to improve on the educations of Morocco children in particular, and that of the Morocco community as a whole. Therefore, is it the role of, I don't know how to say that. Okay. So must the lead educate organization in this process to ensure that the following plans of action is implemented. I'm sorry if I pronounce wrong the names of the community of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimin. Thank you. And it's so interesting because she's proposing, okay, after her fieldwork and plan analysis and plan writing and the report, she wants to propose encounters with parents, colleagues, civil society organizations, agencies and government offices. Okay, and after she's proposing a communitarian events with children's, okay, producing. She has an interesting proposal because she is proposing posters, okay, denouncing early and forced marriage imposed by cultural norms on the community. She's not working alone because she's establishing a collaboration with Boroboro traditional authorities, okay? And here in this slide, she's talking about building a coalition and targeting Islamic clerics, okay? Here she identify religious leaders, traditional authorities, project donors, governmental services, etc. Okay, and she's proposing, for example, sensitization campaigns in the communities. The second activity, I think, is so smart because she's proposing to use contemporary Islamic scholars to create awareness. She's working using religion and religious leaders and intellectuals. And finally, she is talking about scholarships, how she can identify and establish alliances in educational sector, providing scholarships for the education of the girls, and to establish an sponsorship. Okay, I think she's a really smart and political thinker, no? How she can produce all these relationship with her project. Finally, she wants to introduce the economical resources dimension, proposing the possibility and the feasibility a study of a small business, because as we know, fighting against these kind of practices needs to have an economical dimension, okay? How the participants can develop business plans for groups and individual women. And she's proposing here a relationship with project donors, okay? Here she has this specific recommendations, okay? In terms of sensitization of the importance of education and to deconstruct the stereotypes, okay? The scholarships are crucial for her to encourage girls and child education. And I think this is incredible because she's introducing a relation with Nigeria and the perspective of advocacy for nomadic education in Cameroon, okay? As you can see, she's working at the local level, national level, and transnational level, okay? Here we have some of her annexes, interesting and beautiful result of her fieldwork, working with spiritual leaders, fathers, mothers, and she is, I think she work in 4 different communities: Bafusam community, Fumbot community. We have pictures of the families, some pictures in the school, in political spaces. Okay, I think it's an incredible work and a good example for you. Okay. Well, okay. Well, now I want to invite Laura and Paula we have this second part of the session to hear her experience, sometimes amazing experience to write, another time not a scary experience, and it's okay. It's okay. To write is not an easy practice, and we can be inspired with her experience. Entonces, muy bienvenidas.
Welcome.
No sé
Welcome. Well, I don't know which one is going to start today.
no sé si quieren autorregularse o les
I don't know if you want to regulate yourself or I can help you, telling you with time.
La idea es que cada una
The
tenga
idea is that each one of you has
20
a
minutos
certain
para
space, 15, 20 minutes to share with them, and then to have the possibility to exchange ideas with the rest of our
¿Cómo
peers.
prefieren? ¿Se autorregulan o
Whatever you want to do, you want to regulate or do you want me to help you?
A mí, ayúdame, profe.
Nah, please help me
Tú
teach.
sabes que puedo quedarme hablando
Yeah,
mucho
I can
también.
speak. I can stay speaking for the entire session.
Bueno, muy bienvenidas.
All right, welcome.
Entonces,
So who goes first?
Si quieres, inicio yo, Paulita. Listo.
Okay, I can begin, Paul.
Mi pantalla.
To share my screen, give me a second.
¿Se alcanza a ver?
Can I see the screen?
Entonces, bueno, de nuevo, buenos
Well,
días.
welcome.
Realmente
Hello,
estoy muy
everyone.
feliz
It's a
de poder
pleasure to be
estar
here
con ustedes y de
and be
contar un
sharing
poco de
with
este
you
proceso
and to tell you a bit
de
about this
investigación,
process of
que
research
fue mi requisito de grado
that was my
para
requirement
sociología. Entonces,
for sociology.
bueno,
So
voy a contar un poquito del
I'm
inicio
gonna
de
tell you a bit
cómo
about
fue
the
mi
how this
tesis
began,
y
how the thesis
como les
began.
comentábamos,
And like I
como les
told you,
comentaba la profe,
I was telling Miss
el Centro
Paula
Intercultural
in the
tuvo
Intercultural
diferentes
Center, we
proyectos de
developed
investigación.
different projects for research,
Tuvimos un proyecto
and we have a
base
project
bastante grandote
based on
y fue en ese proyecto grandote en el que pude
in which I was able to inspire myself
desarrollar
to
esta
develop
tesis en
this
co-creación con
thesis
las
in
mujeres que están
recreation with the women that you
en
see
este
there in the
proyecto.
image.
Bueno, yo la titulé Desde la crianza
I called
somos
it
fuerza,
From Birth,
experiencias
We're
alrededor de
Strong.
la educación
It's
local
experiences around the
en la
local
zona
education in
rural
Huaca,
Guacumaque
in
en Puerto
Government House in
César.
Aticahuaca, in Pueblo Bello, Cesar.
Ángela fue mi tutora y ella me
Miss
apoyó
Angela was my
demasiado
tutor,
en
and
la
she helped me a
parte
lot in
metodológica y también
the
teórica
methodology.
y de mi tesis. Bueno, yo en el
Here,
documento que habían,
in
digamos,
the document that they
me
asked
quisieron
me,
hacer,
I wanted to highlight
escogí
this
fue
key
esta
elements.
primera parte del título.
And
Para
this
mí,
part was about
crear
the title.
títulos
For
es
me,
lo
was
más
to
complicado
create titles is the hardest
porque
thing
básicamente
because
mostrar y ser
we want to show and be
representativo de lo
representative of the
importante de
work,
la
but
tesis.
also it has to call the attention of
Entonces,
the reader.
yo creo que fue lo que más
So
me demoré
I think that was the part where I took the longest
en ponerlo.
to actually put the title out of it.
En mi tesis,
In my thesis,
empecé a pensar tres
I
cosas
started thinking about three things
alrededor de todo mi proceso de
around
investigación.
the process of research.
Entonces, en un primer momento,
In the first moment, I was
pensé en los
thinking
espacios
about
que tenía
the
Casa de
spaces
Gobierno
that I had
y
with the
pues fue
government,
Casa de Justicia,
which is a justice
Pablo
style
Cesar, liderado por
in the
mujeres
Palacio
indígenas,
style, and it was led by indigenous
donde
women,
actualmente tienen una
where we currently
ruta
have a
de
route, a
prevención y
pathway
atención
for prevention and
eliminación
attention
de violencias
and mitigation
sexuales
of
y
violence,
mujeres basadas en
sexual
género
violence and gender-based
para
violence
mujeres
for
y
women
niños de la Sierra Nevada
and
de Santa
children
Marta.
in Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta,
Acogen casos
and they take on
de mujeres
cases
huacas, de
of
pronto de otras
Huaraca women
comunidades que
and
son
from other
indígenas
communities as
o bien
well that are Wilgwa.
campesinos. Entonces, bueno, es una ruta
So
bastante
it's a
amplia
pathway
porque se
that is
acogen
very
personas no
broad,
indígenas
and
y
even
que
with
lo
the
hace
staff
ser
that is non-indigenous as well,
una ruta acá en Colombia
that
innovadora
makes it
y es una
an
ruta muy
innovative
importante para
pathway,
ustedes.
and it's one of those
Entonces,
justice pathways
en
as well.
esta inspiración,
And in this
yo empecé a
inspiration,
pensar en esos
I started
espacios
thinking about the spaces
en donde las mujeres
where
indígenas podían
women
reunirse, conversar
could
y
come
hablar
together
sobre
and talk
violencias
about
y proponer
these violences and
soluciones
propose
concretas,
action, concrete
sobre
action.
todo quién participa
and who could participate in these meetings. In a second spot, I wanted to talk about the documentation of these processes in terms of the education. I'll tell you a bit about, but let's say that it comes from a first point of conversations that we had, of the words we had, and I find out that they have processes that have to do with education. And finally, Angela was also motivated us in the research to not only do connecting ideas, but to think about the reality of the contributions that we're making and how from our role as researchers we can propose other debates. And that's where we got the third point, which comes from the community and these are in institutional dialogues. And I'm putting here as well my question, in which way the conceptions of the conception of childhood and the upbringing patterns and coping mechanisms of violence with ethnic, gender, and intergenerational approach. I want to say to highlight that the process, I began with the methodology. And teacher Angela taught us about the work that you've done here. And this is how I feel that I've identified, because I began with what you're saying in your class, because in the university, when I was doing my methodology classes, the order of the research was very different, and I didn't feel as comfortable. But once I started doing the thesis, I started to find out without thinking about a research project, but more like motivation was to, what do I want to reach in my community? What's the impact that I want to do in my community? Who do I want to work with? And then the methodologies that I think that would fit into this idea and this vision of the women, Naruaka women. So without thinking about questions I just started working with children who went to our encounters within the framework project. And this work with the girls first. They're the daughters of the leader that take the case in Casa de Gobierno, the government house. And they're always there listening to the conversations, they're paying attention to their mothers. And they were just shy to speak if they felt ashamed or didn't feel as comfortable, because we have women from different ages, we have women with different methodologies, and this was the first motivation to speak with them, and then so with the timelines and body mappings, thinking about the future, just to start breaking the ice, getting to know each other, both the girls and the boys and the girls that participated. And we all did the exercise together. And we spoke around their personal history. And at the same time, besides the drawing, with the drawings that I had, and this is the ones that I see. You can see some of the mappings that we did in one of the exercises. And you still, we brought these notebooks, and just like Miss Angela in their moment asked the women to write their history in a log, I asked them to do this as well, so they can take their time to take their notepads that we brought to the community and to let them become it their diary. And then in another meeting, the girls brought that log and began with their stories, with their daily life, with their dream, to write about their perception. So let's say we began there. From there, we began with other methodology that was the base of my research project, which was the construction of a ball. And like I always say, this is the work that I did in life with my mother, who was a workshop, a fashion workshop, and she was the one who helped me do the work with the project as well. We were able to, and the dyes, the cloth, the work with the rocks that we did, the cloth, so that every boy and girl in an exercise that they did, intergenerational work, were able to talk about the identity, Auraka identity, and how the women and the girls could talk about their bodies in relationship with their traditions and their colors, their backpack that they wore. Like they see here, it's that they symbolize as the backpack, the belt that they used in around their waist. And like that exercise, they were able to identify their gender roles, tradition, and and then the women they put a facial expression, and that was depending on their emotions at that time, and also how the boys and girls were able to rescue from elements from their culture, and where somebody told them to don't forget to put such and such elements, which is important to their culture. In this conversation, so the cards and then also body mapping in 3D as well. Just to talk about, I also put here one of the stories that we had. I want to read it to you. We're not only women who are sweeping, watching, and cooking and taking care of chickens. We are also women with the capacity. We have virtues of feeling as mothers and to organize and build. That's our mission, to maintain harmony between not contaminating the ears, the mind, the eyes, and above all the hearts and the soul. Not always, but to be always in the clarity of posture, just as the water is for our life. That we can be nurtured, that it can help to build, that it can be helped to use stories for our children and our youth, so they can have a nice vision, good learning, so they can continue growing after them as well. And well then, for my thesis, and after doing this whole process of research, because at this moment I was already thinking about the end result of my thesis, I was gonna give back to the community as a result of my thesis, and that it was not just the documents that I had printed out. So I found research on a lot of literature, and I found the anatomical dolls, and I added the Araka to the title. And with my mother, we did many afternoons thinking about a doll that the community could feel reflected, and that they could have their purposes that they have in the literature that I'll show you in a bit. So we built this with the idea of, with the responsibility of taking more later on. So they had their genitals, uh, elements that are proper to their women and men and the children and boys, highlighting that there are on these dolls that didn't have a waist or the genital part, So we started doing to think about how to create a bulb where the women could feel comfortable when working with it, and also for the masculine genital. How can we? And then once we had this picture and having the doll of creating this atlas in the house and organizing the information and having transcribed the conversations, we come into the theory. Which is a responsibility. I don't have any time left here right now, but
Se quedan 7.
7 minutes. We're good. I created for you a list of 8 points that I felt were vital in this theorization that I feel that are part of that are the longest part that has requires more dedication for the researcher, for the thesis, for my thesis at least. So how to begin? How to land? And like I mentioned it, it's start thinking in categories. Start thinking of those big concepts, what I put in the titles, that I put that they can see, they can verbalize from the conversation. And that was the basis for the creation of this research. So for example, second, in my question I was speaking about the conceptions of childhood and upbringing patterns and coping mechanisms of violence. So for example, from that mentality, thinking about categories and concepts, I already had 3 key concepts to where I could focus on trying to find the literature. So it had to be childhood, academic levels, childhood with ethnic focus, childhood with gender approach, and I started to research those different titles with that keyword around what was around the world with that topic. And then I started to do examples for the methodology that I was using and something that was there from when we're talking with Angela to build when the series was that the world there's just one person working around that methodology or around that topic. But our work is to find those initiatives at the regional level, local level, world level, global level that are already published and that we can have access to. So that's another tip that we found, that we already had the concept of terminologies, and now we can start how to link that with the methodology that we're using. In my case, yeah, we had the logs, I had cartography, we had the mapping, we had the weaving of the dolls, which was something that I was looking for in this information banks. So at Google Academia is the one that is more versatile, and when you have a lot of things published already. So in Google Academia, I started looking for different universities at the local and international level, and then non-governmental organizations as well. So any type of information that I could get my hands on. And then a third step, I was thinking about all that time that you spent finding those other initiatives that are being used for concepts, but also to add other visions of concepts. So it's to enjoy the reading, to find the authors. But also, what was happening to me is that I was reading and reading and reading, and I had to stop at some point because I was so much literature on me that I didn't know what to take from it. I think I thought that everything was useful, and then we have reduced reading, and you can't touch all the authors. So it's more like having patience, knowing when to stop reading. And then to organize information by categories. So we have the authors, we have concepts. You probably have already found theories, and you already found examples. So it's time to find and build a mind mapping and into text and how they feel comfortable. I'm going to show you some example of that as well. Organizing all the idea, and then I think that's the end of this. Yes. And then ask yourself about the limitations and the gaps on the concept, and what are we contributing with our research. That I think that's the hardest part, that the most important part as well. And how as researchers we feel and highlight within this academic world. And so that's also living within our project, thinking about the contributions that we're doing. And this is what came from that. Just to thinking about those, but the tradition in Guatemala, how we do this as a repair tool. In Santa Marta, another level, they used it to remember the leaders, just exercises to build the history of women, leaders of women in history, and also memory logs in South Africa and Washington as well. And on the other side, we found other atomic dolls in Indonesia, which are places that are far from Colombia, that also think about the contribution with the body, and these methodologies that facilitate the communication with the girls and boys. So there's another example of that as well. And that's how this organization of ideas came about, of the data came about. And then you have the different readings trying to find it, how to use the dolls around the world. And I'm gonna stop right there. I don't know if I went overboard, but I'll stop right there. Very impressive. Good job. I'll show you my presentation through the chat box. I don't know, maybe somebody can use it later on as a resource. Thank you, Laura.
I don't know if somebody wants
Does somebody
to do comments, ideas, questions before. No? Nobody? Okay. Ok. Bueno, mi querida Paulita.
All right, Paula. If there are no questions or comments, we'll go ahead and have Paula speak.
Hola, Jenilyn, ¿estás hablando?
Well, Jamie, just want to add something. Thank you, Laura, for your presentation. And I had a connectivity issue, but I was able to, but I really liked it. And something that I enjoyed was the advices in terms of finding all the material for the information, for the literature. What happens to us is that we have so much information and we don't know how to consolidate it and find out what's most important. So I think that advice that you gave us was very key, very, very important, because we're all in that process of with our research cases. So thank you very much for bringing that. And if you're sending a presentation, thank you very much. It's already in the chat box, okay? So you people have access to it in the chat box. Thank you, Jenny Lee. Alrighty. I have another comment as well. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Laura, for for sharing your work. I think that it's very interesting, very enriching to see from your experience from other countries and other contexts. And also, yeah, congratulations. And also ask you how I was very key with the work that you did for the reading on work on what spaces to put the analysis within the reading. But I wanted to ask you about the other part that has to do with the work with the girls, with the women, and with the children. I think that it's very hard to work with the testimonies and the stories of people because I feel that it's very complicated from this point of view of how we, as researchers, can give that respect and ethic to their stories and what they're telling us, and also how this process came about, how with working with the women, from the analysis, from the systemization, from the reading, in those moments as well, specifically with the work with the women. Thank you very much. Well, like I mentioned before at the beginning, I think that this research was not easy. It was co-creation with the women. So every space, like you mentioned, I was at constant dialogue with what is important for the women and what was I felt was needed to be included. So, for example, in terms of the pictures, so you can see the images where I put the summary of the dolls of each person doesn't have the faces out of respect of the people as well. So ethics with the university as well. But for all this process is to keep asking for the coordinator of the territory and the person who has the most with the cabildo, with the mayor, which is the first woman to have this role as leadership in terms of justice. And she was the person who was the pillar and that pair for me, that peer in terms of the work that I was doing. So I was asking her, can I bring a doll? What do I need for the doll? What shouldn't I bring? At the end of the exercises as well was very important because it was a work being done with the boys and girls to begin thinking about the boys and girls didn't feel vulnerable or if they felt comfortable with me, trusting me to share information with me and who they can also share it afterwards. So all of those were elements that and agreements that had to do with the representative, with the thesis, and then with the collective work that we did with the children. It's always challenging to work with children, especially in my case to come out of my comfort zone of the academia and to find those methodologies that could work with me and that they can pay attention to me and also to have fun during the process as well, thinking about, as we were thinking about those upbringing patterns and the relationship that they have with with their mothers, with the community leaders. It was also just a circle. That's how I think about it. It's a circle that enables us to be in constant knowledge. Uh, both all the knowledge are important. The knowledge for the women are very important, and to show the result constantly in the process, in the research process as well. Thank you and congratulations as well for the complexity with your mother as well. How you work with your mother with this with the dolls, so that's awesome too.
Sí, sí, yo ya quiero proponerle a mi mamá, pero ella no sabe
Yes, I'm
hacer
also
esto.
thinking about my mother, but she doesn't know how to do this kind of things.
Bueno, tenemos a Samay y a
We have
Nai.
Tamai, Ainai.
¿Quieres seguir?
Tamai, you can go first.
Sí, ¿cómo están, compañeras?
Good
Igual,
morning, thank you. Hello, congratulations
y por
on this
compartirnos
process and for sharing with us. I feel that
dos comentarios y
I
también
have two
una
comments,
pregunta.
also
La
questions.
primera es,
The first one is,
¿cómo trabajaron con el tema de la
how,
barrera del lenguaje?
how do you work with the language barrier?
Porque entiendo que no fue en su lenguaje, sino
Because I know that you can't pick, if it wasn't in your language, it was in Spanish, so how did that work with you?
Y la segunda sería también,
And then the second one is,
veía en el título que es
also in the title that you saw, intergenerational, so talking about children and youth and adults.
por eso digamos que es
So
intergeneracional también.
yes, that's what what makes it intergenerational. I saw that that has gender approach as well in terms of working within women and all that, and their rights and their body. And within the intercultural, I wanted to know more about what was the perspective. Was it the fact that they would have indigenous women, or what else were you including to make it intercultural research? And also, how is that reflected in the methodologies and the results as well? Thank you.
Bueno, espero no alargarme mucho para
All right. Hopefully, I won't take too long.
Bueno, eso todo también hace
All of
parte
that
como del
is
proceso
part
de
of the
investigación,
research process
porque precisamente porque
because
trabajo con mujeres indígenas,
I was working with indigenous women.
o sea,
It was
no
it was
por eso que es un enfoque intercultural,
it's not an intercultural approach just for that, but
el
because
enfoque intercultural que yo le
the
di
intercultural
fue
approach comes
que las
from
mujeres eran
that the women were
ellas
co-creators
proponían los
and they
términos
were
o proponían
proposing the
las
term
teorías y ya era
and
mi
they were proposing the theory. And my job as a researcher was to organize the
otras
information and
autoras.
find other authors
También
around those
estos
topics.
conceptos y estas teorías
Also, the concepts and the theories
era una mezcla entre lo
was a mix
académico
between
de
the
la
academic
universidad,
and the university and what the requirements was asked for sociology class. And we also used to conceptualize a Mayan academica from the body territory and from other. I was using a case from a Mexican from Mexico, from indigenous women from Mexico that had alliances with the government, and there's also uh, uh, it's called a modelo house, but if you want to check that out. But just like the government house here, they also have education processes at the local level. And well, this allows the research to be not only go into the community, gather the information, come back home, and just put it together in a computer, but also to give it the value that it needs to all the testimonies that were given and the experiences that were given, because it was an experience, a total experience for the research. And I also think about my role within that research. The intercultural research allows you to do that. Get us out of that place where you're objective about it and we become part of the community as one. And the first question is, well, it was all in Spanish. And we had one of the women, their role was to be the translator. So when the authorities, the spiritual authorities, were going to give an advice, they were the ones who translating the information into Spanish, whatever the spiritual guide was telling us.
Muchas gracias a Samay y a Laura. Me parece muy
Thank you, Samaya and Laura. I feel that to have this dialogue, I feel that in some sessions I was telling you that I have a lot of hope on this new generation that do research and that also we have an open science that is contemporary within these lines to transform this from within. And I feel that Laura suffered a lot, and she also enjoyed it, obviously, because clearly she was writing, trying to position that intercultural sociology is such a sociology, and it was a battle that she won, because after Laura, many other researchers, indigenous researchers, have mestiza as well, because we also um, work with them, so that mestiza women could work legitimately in very colonial academia. All of this epistemology. So I feel that was also the intention, to show that there are lines in which we can play with the current proposals for global research, and that we need to position yourself. So the invitation is that you can also position yourself within this discussions, because if we're all discussing on the outside, that academic matrix that is very colonial will always be untouched, and we need to talk about it from within, bring it down from within. It's a pleasure. I feel it's very pleasurable to do it. All right. So thank you. Nai, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Teacher Angela, and thank you for. I didn't catch her name properly, but I want to say thank you also for a good presentation. One of the things that I've learned out of her presentation is that we are doing intercultural research, and one of the things we need to obtain and to make people to learn to read our work, first of all, we need to identify a way to attract people to read our work. I've really seen she has used the dolls and the pictures. Automatically, one will feel like, what does she mean? Let me read and understand what she means. So that really touched me, that we have a lot of good English and a lot of issues to share. But how can we transform this into something that when one sees, we know that she obtained what we really portray and what we really want to convey from the research that we have done. The other thing that really I needed to comment is that she is using she was in a language that is not on our comfort zone, but she has made herself to come out with findings that today she has shared there. So despite that we work in diversity, we still have the local dialect that we are working with. And this is one of the identity that we have as indigenous community that also can be portrayed the way she has used the dolls and other portraits that she has used. But she has really conveyed the message today we have. So as a researcher, I need to share what I get in the field by finding ways to convey that in a simple way, but also in a portrait way that one will be attracted to have that work of mine, but my meaning and all that I need to pivot or to beacon out to the community or to the decision makers and others is seen easily. It's not hidden. That's what I've got from her. I really don't have a question, but I was very impressed on that. And then the thing of the doll has really impressed me, that she has used something one could not even think of, but has made me feel that our work was really conveying something. Thank you so much.
Está en mudo, profesora Ángela. Profesora Ángela, tiene el canal mudo. Profesora Ángela.
I was saying thank you very much for the presentation, your incredible projects and comments. And now we are going to listen Paula, and after we have more time to continue the discussion, okay? Thank you very much, Laura. Listo, Paulita.
Hello, everybody. As a prelude tell you, I'm Paula. I'm part of Angela's work team. My presentation will be in Spanish. It's my native language, and I feel more comfortable. However, I didn't want miss the opportunity to say hello to the English-speaking colleagues. And if you have any kind of question, please let me know. Muy buenos días a todas. Les contaba a las compañeras
Hello,
que
everyone. I was telling our couriers that I'm going to do presentation in English, in Spanish, I'm sorry, because that's how I feel comfortable. But I'm also there, paying attention to whatever concepts and questions that the English-speaking people have. I'm here. I'm going to be sharing screen. I won't be able to see you, but please interrupt me if you need it. Let me show you my screen here. So with Laura, we saw a methodological process and the result that she obtained from the thesis. It was a very academic process. Here, I want to go more in depth in another aspect that we've been working from the work team from Ms. Angela, and that has to do with the international cooperation and also the catching of resources and how can we generate products that are together, that mix from the international cooperation and how we can articulate those for the interest for the women and the community processes. Because there is a need to decolonize and to bring within the community processes, especially for processes including women. So I'm going to show you this process that we've been working with the women WIWAs from the department CESAR in Colombia, which I'll show you later in a map. And this is sowing hope between stitches towards the prevention, care, and protection of sexual violence. So a bit of context. Colombia is very complex, as you can say. Internationally, we have had to have different processes for building processes, and the conflict in our territories and in Colombia particularly has affected throughout the whole country. In the north of the country, where we have Waka communities, Weekes communities, and particularly, I want to talk to you about a process of women, WIWA's women, of the community WIWA, that has faced violence, armed actors, different armed actors in the area, and then we talk the activism, and it was also generated forced prostitution, displacement that is enforced. And within the framework of this process, we also have resistance on the women. And just like that, the Commission of Women of the WIWA organization, that's one of those processes that came about. And the women have generated these processes of coming together to different agencies and different resistances in the process of the context of absolute violence, and they have a response to this. So from the intercultural the work that Angela have, we have made development, creating a collaborative research agenda. And here, let's talk about this collaborative agenda, like you would say, as field work, which is very important as well, to decolonize those terms and generate new dialogue that are very more collaborative, and that have to generate inter and exchange spaces, and that will allow us to bring to the daily and the community the research. And that is why we called this agenda that have to do the field work and has to do with a process and steps that you can see there in the slide. Unfortunately, I think at least I feel very fortunate that these spaces have generated very organically. If we have intention of working with more specific work, which are gender-based violence and violence with against conflict, armed conflict agenda. Within this agenda, we've seen a lot of openness, and we've been able to include as well other interests in the territory. So this is one of the first areas that we can share for you. With the work I had the field work can be done. The questions that Jesse was also making, as well, taking into account that everything that we do, everything that we write, all the methodologies that we generate in the territory is collaborative and collective. And we're also using the different agendas, collective results, and it's been together with the authorities in the community and with the leaders and the women that are involved in the territories. What are these processes in deployment? Because that the testimonies can be heard. They're always telling us, write about what we want to say, talk about what we want to speak, talk about what we're speaking in the territory. And they've also asked us two things. The first, to use to be anonymous with the testimony that they use. So we put other names in the testimonies or simply not to identify them. And on the other side, we also had the fortune of having our illustrator and all these materials and the photos that we use, the cover photos that we use, where they come about has been edited and so that we can protect their identity, because that is a petition that they have for us. And here we can start identifying these big challenges related to the theory and putting into dialogue and analysis the materials that we have found. So to clarify that, in the first place, women and the territories are asking us constantly to share the legacy of what they've been working on the community. And from the potential and the respect of this testimony, when we talk about, so the one of the big challenge that we find is to put the theory, is to be in the specific case, it's like Laura was saying, to identify with the research work that with this Angela, she's helped me a lot to have the spaces and the freedom with a lot of responsibility that has to do with my place as a feminist woman, in the city, in the urban side. Nonetheless, this collaborative agenda, where we have collective doing, have also allowed me to identify, and then this has also bring me the necessity of that are not also in the feminism that work in the urban side on the western side. So the women in the territory are thinking about other ways connected to gender, how to connect gender, and to stand resistance in those scenarios. Actually, we have a testimony here, a grandmother who tells us in her song, the women in the territory and in the communities are Yugumi, which in her tongue means women. Ibn Kuraruma in terms refers to men. And in this analysis, and the interest of those women to link the complementary and or the need of link both men and women, and that they can be linked in the process as well, and we include men. And theirs is very complex as well. And so to take the presence of the men as a feminist, particularly, I feel that put into women to interpret, and that's not done by. So the traditional roles, gender traditional roles that are where we know that in the communities we have practices with the lady that was talking about from the critical, when the critique that you were speaking about was very similar to what we've spoken about is the practice of sexual initiation with spiritual guides. So we're talking about the scenarios and this logic of how women can take ownership and reconfigure themselves, whether it's just talking about now when we talk about these challenges and analyze the results in the territory, it's how we link them to big categories, like to the big debate international level. And at the international level, for example, we have different organizations, different authors who have been thinking about how to repair the things that have to do with sexual violence. So there are ways to link what we have found in the territories, in the text, and to generate critics about it, because that's what that parliament tells us. So when we talk about this particular case, the biggest question that we have is, how are we thinking about the actions for repair related to sexual violence and to the gender-based violence in the territories for women from their projects? And there is debates around this at the international level that has been thinking about this, especially about generating spaces to allow participation of women. And also as a team, we found that there is a big gap related to how they've been thinking about this process from the ethnical side, and how they've been thinking about these voices in the intercultural dialogue between the ethnic women and mestizos. So there we have some women who think about their territories. Because So when we talk about the organizational men, how we're going to be, when we want to get resources to work this topic, sexual violence, we find a bureaucratic issues. They don't sign a document, or they lay a lot with the finding of documents, or to prioritize the result and the resources and other things that are not to talk about topics related to women, the importance of women, and for the women as well that we're working with, there is a big need of visualizing different authors to refer to talk about the sons of wars, and it's all these people that were born as a result of a rape by an armed person that comes into a territory. So in these cases, the women identify themselves in the Wiwa town. There are sons of war, or daughters of war, that are not from the Wiwa community. We've seen this in the communities that are far away, and we found women who have children that have different characteristics that are us, and out of this armed conflict that were raped as well because guerrilla paramilitaries. So the women are taught of the repair product of this victimization. So in this context, we have generated different products that respond to the question of how we can talk methodologically the interest of the as a fieldwork team. So these products are included as a response to these questions that we're making ourselves in the agenda for the research. And one of those has to do with how the women in the territory and the community have thought about talking about justice and repair. And from that question, we have a response that has to do a timeline of the process of the women in the territories and how have they thought about the women in the repair and how have they been talking about opening spaces for women. And the spaces for women also mentioned that they have been visible for some women, like the role that they have with the authorities of the spiritual class. They have been very important, and there is a need for the visualization to have a memory of those resources in the territory. So one of those products is a timeline. As a fieldwork, I think we have also created community processes. So Laurita has spoke to you about the route that they have that they want to work with.
We have been able to generate collaborative dialogues between the women that I'm working on and the women that Laurita has been working with. And so the women that I worked with identified as a big project, the route for the mitigation of sexual violence. And in this time, they are generating more content every time we can talk to them and we can go to the territory and speak to them over the phone, over Zoom. There's more advances on this route. So I also feel like we have been very fortunate as a team because they have identified in the work team a scenario for articulating, but also to generate the spaces and the writing of the processes. We're like their scribes. It's a space to systematize all that information. and that collaborative agency for research and those dialogues that we have generated for the women, with the women, have allowed us to be an active part of the process, from the systematization of the processes and the ethical considerations, because the whole time women are accompanying us in the process, and we are an active part on both sides, from the part of the women, but also from the part of the working team. And that has to do and that has been announced in the route that you can see here on the left, that we will go in depth on that. And on the right, we have a card. And this card narrates how the creation process has been of the timeline and of the route. So this card has been recording the different women that want to share the territory. So we see the timeline here. As you can see, it's a line that is illustrated so as to not identify the faces. And this is also done with the approval of women in the territory, and as women who have played a crucial role in this process, and some men as well. So, for example, we have there Jose Antonio, Juan, and in this time, for example, which are men that women identify as allies of the process, and they have accompanied us as the formative processes. And this is very important because if as a team and as women we want to fight the harmful practices within the communities, they could serve as a vehicle to move forward and have more allies in the process. So this also provides help in our process. Teacher, how much time do I have left? 6 more minutes. Perfect. And here we have a route, which is also systematized, and we're in the process of systematizing this. And it has an area of prevention and an area of follow-up. And in this area, we have all these practices, these cultural practices that women have practiced together in the process, the community processes, and the cause of vision of Indigenous people. And these are scenarios to prevent that violence based on gender, and the accompaniment of a saga or a council to prevent that. Just like the traditional dances that are rehabilitating and rebuilding all the processes. In terms of attention, women also have the ability to generate dialogues and the organization, and the need to link organizations of the state and of the civil society, and equipment and teams, research teams as well. And the big idea of women right now is to create a observatory for women, because women at this time are very interested in following up these processes and be facilitators of the process, of accompanying the process. But as a Colombian society, we have a huge sub-register of sexual abuse and violence based on gender, and that sub-register is even more complex when we're talking about Indigenous women and ethnical women within the community scene. So they want to do that follow-up and also have within that situation the community dialogue within the institutions. And that's where, through these products, we have to work methodologically from the collaborative dialogues And from these questions, because these great products have allowed us to identify the different situations that women face from their own voices and resistance. So for women talking about sexual violence and talk about general violence in the territory implies talking about the territory. So the territory is not unlinked from the body of women, and women are trying to heal their bodies so that they can heal the territory. So here, it's not that the territory and the territory is over bodies or over the healing of bodies, is that it's a collective healing. We found that, for example, in the mana, which is a traditional language of the people, the word of violation, rape, and sexual violence doesn't exist. The word is takuma, and the word means literally raping Mother Nature. So from their own processes, they link the territory as a way that's valid to stop violence. Women also in the mark of the, or in the framework of prevention and attention, they identify the need to have a house to reestablish rights for women. And in this house, women are thinking of having scenarios where you have halfway homes for women that are high risk, that are at high risk of violence in their communities, or that have been experiencing violence. But also from an intercultural perspective, so that the knowledgeable women in the territory can speak, where they can exercise cultural practices like dancing and traditional kitchen, where they can live that pain from the spiritual perspective. And that's for rehabilitation purposes, which are very important, without leaving to the side the spiritual aspects. With this relationship with the Mamu and the Saga, which are the spiritual leaders, and the dancing and all of that. They also, in the scenario, they have this need to have a halfway house to impart justice that we have been systematizing as a dialogue, and the need for women to have their own spaces will have their each time more incidents and voice, and that they are the main ones, the main leaders and accompany and the people who accompany the others in terms of sexual violence, and that the people who have suffered violence can be accompanied by these women, and they are the ones that they're responsible for providing accompaniment and sustenance to other women. In this case, women have been generating criticism of what happens when a person that is an aggressor shares in the same community space with the person who's a survivor. And what they want is to separate survivors and the aggressors, so they are far away, so as to not generate re-victimization. And so that's why this is an independent house of the house that we saw previously of reestablishment of the rights. They are thinking it should be different. And I would stop there because I feel like I'm over time. Thank you so much, Paula. Okay.
I don't know if somebody wants to comment or to ask questions, because we have here a lot of projects in the same perspective, no? Somebody want to comment?
Yeah, May.
Of course, the man, go on.
Yes, it's. I think I'm overfed with what I've been listening to. It's a lot of projects, and the context also is very interesting. Although I haven't read a lot about Colombia, is it? But in the context of armed conflict, and then I think there's also somehow a critique of urban and Western feminism. So that's really very interesting. And then articulating the indigenous women's perspective and spirituality. That's something I don't know. I still haven't found. I think I've met elders, yes, but um seems still so separated. People are still working so separate from each other. So uh I hope that this FIMI course is will also generate space, at least a space. We are still in the territory. uh it's relatively peacetime, but then there's a lot of pain of the past, no, that separates. I think that's one thing that has to be addressed, no. So I'm curious how because it's not one time, no, it's a process, and we have to create the space for conversation, safe space for conversation. But at the same time, towards the end, you were speaking about like a house to impart justice, and it's a center for women restoration. Like there's some boundaries also being clarified. Is that what I'm understanding? Like, I mean, we cannot be it's not like just kiss and forgive, no. Forgive and forget. There has to be attention put into. And then interesting that you were talking about children actually in the beginning, and then it ends with like more focus on women. So it's really important to empower the women, and of course the men allies as well, in order to protect and prevent further violence, especially on children. No? I'm very interested with how justice is conceptualized amidst while the armed conflict is still ongoing. I don't know the context of Colombia, but in the Philippines, armed conflict is still existing, although resistance movements is also very fragmented. And unfortunately, I hear of many women in the who have taken up arms, no? So it's like uh it's so sad, no. I still identify with the issues, but it's so sad to hear of women eventually taking up arms. And we know how uh I also witness how strong and how, of course, macho is still armed conflict is it's very much a macho culture. So we also like we I don't know. For me, I'm also, it's a lot of intergenerational issues and hurting and wounding, but it's very inspiring listening from you, but we have to find, you mentioned about, you know, uh, sorry, I think yeah, I think it's very important to generate new spaces. Not really totally new, but I think we have to renew spaces. I mean, there's been time in the 80s women have created spaces to speak up, but along the way, with the length of the armed struggle, sometimes women voices and even children's voices are actually compromised. So one thing that I also have been listening to you say repeatedly is the collaboration, no? Well, I'm also still learning about constructive collaboration because I think it's a new concept, especially for us who have been in the civil society and also have been survivors of violence. I think it's new for especially for people in the authority or people who are identified, like I mean the state, usually to for survivors to extend hearts and souls for constructive collaboration. So for me, I'm still so much in the learning process. At the same time, know that this is a very sensitive uh, journey as well. So very inspiring, and thank you for your sharing.
Thank you, Doman. ¿Te parece si oímos a Jessie y así tú puedes como
Should we
luego?
hear to Jessie and then we can afterward share? Jessie?
Gracias. También
Thank you very much, Paula.
escuchar este tipo de
I think to hear this kind of research is, as the sister was saying, Doman, it's very inspiring because usually in the academy it's still very patriarchal and very colonialist, and to know these kinds of research exist, it's more participative, more with an intercultural focus and diverse, it's really inspiring. So thank you for your presentation, and ask you, working in these conflict and mining extraction, is it complicated with a lot of challenges? So for the researchers and collaborators, what are these resistance, these strengths that to create these kinds of spaces that in some way could be safe spaces to build, to share, and to sharing, working with international cooperation also has its own challenges because these are institutions that have their own mechanisms of prevention and attention and their own concept. So how do you articulate this community vision? That's in my part. Thank you.
Gracias, Jessie. Gracias.
Thank you, Jessie.
Bueno, Paulita, ¿quieres
Paula,
comentar?
do you want to comment on
Pues
anything?
primero a Domnam y a
Well,
Jessie,
first of all, and Domam, thank you for you and Jessie,
que ahí de verdad que
the
me
feedback,
genera un corazón
and
de mucha energía
my
bonita,
heart
muchas ganas de
fills
seguir
with a lot of
trabajando.
great experience, a
Porque
lot of
digo,
great
es que, profe Laura, no estamos solas.
love.
A nivel
We're
mundial
not, and I
hay
say we're not
otras mujeres
alone.
que se están
At
pensando esto.
a world level, there's
Y
other
que
women who
ojalá
are
pues podamos
thinking
seguir
about this, and
generando
that we hope
como estos
we can
procesos
continue
sociales.
generating these processes.
Desde Filipinas,
And to hear Daman
pues
from
sí, es que las mismas
Philippines,
preocupaciones tenemos aquí.
we have the
Mire,
same
en ningún
concerns,
momento, por ejemplo,
because
si bien
in
pasamos por
no
un proceso de acuerdo de paz,
case, even though we go through a
en
peace
este momento en los
agreement
territorios el
process, in this
conflicto está en proceso
time in the territories, the
de
conflict is
recrudece.
still
Cada vez
ongoing,
es más complicado.
and it's even more
Y trabajar
complicated.
ahí, trabajar
And to
desde ahí,
work
pues
there, to
genera
work from there,
desafíos, así como lo dice
generates
Jess.
a series of challenges, like
Tiene
Jess
que
was
ver
saying,
con
that has to
ser muy
do
cuidadosas
with being
a la
very
hora de estar en
careful
procesos colectivos,
when being
hablar
in
todo el
collective
tiempo, tener un diálogo todo el tiempo,
processes, to
dinámico
have a dialogue
con las coordinadoras de los proyectos en territorio, que al final pues, son ellas
to the
quienes
coordinators of this
conocen a su
project, and in
gente
the
y
end, it's
conocen el
them that
contexto en el
know
que
their
están.
people and their
Entonces
context
todo el
more than
tiempo
we
es
do.
como estar preguntando
So currently we have to be asking them how do we have to deal with it, and comment to them we haven't been able in the last trips go into the communities. We have to have gone to department areas, and the most important part is women, so we haven't been able to go into the actual communities. So what we have done is to generate these spaces at an urban level, a little bit more away from the communities, because they feel safer, because it's a way for us to keep them safe. In regards to the justice spaces, from the barriers that Doman was saying, it's very important. Well, Colombia is a very complex country because war here has shaped us, but we're a country that has a lot of indigenous communities, a lot of indigenous peoples, more than 115. And from there, we have been able to generate processes that are very interesting. So our political constitution, which is our main mandate at a national level, establishes that indigenous communities can provide their own way of justice, meaning they can organize and generate collective processes associated with justice. So we see that there are women and men, just indigenous men and women, who impart justice. I don't know how it works in Philippines, Doman, but here we have been working on it. Here, the process that we have in terms of armed conflict is that there is a transition process for peace, which is the jurisdiction for peace, and as a team, we have a new question, which is how do we link those community processes of indigenous justice with the special jurisdiction for peace? Because if we provide a lot of space to the national transition process, we have the risk of losing indigenous justice. So by saying, keeping in turn of what Jesse was saying, that's one of the biggest challenges we have. How do we bring to dialogue the international, the macro in this case, and the transition to peace in Colombia with these micro scenarios of the community processes? So here, for example, of the challenges that we have with the international organism and the concepts, we have been checking that the cooperation of Omni Women has been given a lot of priority to the gender focus, from the intersectional concept, and how women and communities broach these different perspectives from different entities, not just as indigenous women, but also as women who are racialized, and in a way to generate responses and resistance. We are thinking about these dynamics, and here we can find a space and a dialogue scenario, but also it becomes very interesting from their collective spaces that we have been working with, the cooperation, the feedback that they give us is, thank you for bringing forth your knowledge from an intercultural process and from the intersectional process. And I think from these dialogues, these common dialogues are bring forth from what we have been working on in the community processes. And there's a lot of challenges. We have the indicator challenges, which are the ones that the international cooperation is constantly asking for in a concrete manner. And this has also generated the need to bring to the community and to share to women how we have to colonize the processes and bring them to a territory and bring them in a way that is clear to the territories, and from the territories create a reconfiguration at a concept level and not give it back to the international cooperation. And I think right now the work team is that mediator, because it is possible to generate these dialogues. It's very difficult, it's very complex, but the indigenous women with whom we work have a lot to bring forth from these processes, and we have achieved it. With these products that I shared, the route and the timeline of women, these are measurable products that we can give to the cooperation and say we have been working this from those midpoints from that dialogue scenario. That's where I would stop.
Muchas gracias.
Thank
Bueno,
you.
ahora la
Well,
siguiente
now
quiero
I invite you
to the break, and we can come back and talk a little more, okay? See you in 10 minutes. Bye. Hola, mi querida Dunencita. ¿Quieres entonces? Puedes, si quieres. Yo lo que había pensado es justamente dejar esta media horita para que trabajemos en el capitulado. eh, quienes no lo tienen y quienes lo tienen puedan especificar un poquito más los conceptos que van a usar en el capítulo. Pero ¿quieres explicarles bien la necesidad, etcétera, antes de...
Claro que sí, claro que sí.
Do you want to explain the needs before we move forward? Good morning. We're going to work on our chapters in the last 30 minutes. Or whoever has them, we're going to work on improving that. So in the framework of chapter 6, there is a intercultural framework, and we're going to have professionals from the FIMI team and the communications team. And so we have been organizing through this process. And for this, it's interesting to know the different chapters of your research papers so that we can get the main so we can get the most out of that situation. So the people from the FIMI team will check with anticipation your chapter route, and we can create some interesting proposals so that you can work in your research process. You're a mute, teacher. Oh my goodness, this is the story of my life. I speak to myself. Well,
to write your chapters, okay? The titles. I think we can check with the group. Everybody have the chapters. I will ask, for example, Jessy, ¿cómo estás con lo del capitulado? ¿Ya lo tienes listo?
Jesse, how are you doing with your chapters? Is it ready?
Creo que a mí me preguntó.
Jesse, yes, you.
Sí, ya tengo una
Yes,
una propuesta.
I have a draft, a proposal. And would you want to share it with the team? And the commitment is that after you share it, you can send it to Dunen at in the WhatsApp group. Or through the email, or how should we send it? Dunen. We can open a space in Moodle and you can upload it there, okay? Perfect. So we're going to do a small round to see how each one is doing, and the commitment is that you can upload it to the form in the Moodle that's going to be created. So we hear you. Go ahead.
Gracias.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen.
¿Se ve mi pantalla?
Can you see my screen? Perfect.
Mi propuesta de proyecto se llama
My proposal is called the Millenary Cosmoknowledge of a Nahuatl Woman in the Care of Water in the Hidalgo region in Mexico. And in the chapter 1, it's about the context of women and water. So I have these proposals that really are kind of general ideas that are not very specific as to how I'm going to name it, just the idea of what's going to go there. The first one is to explain the context of the region, the socio-environmental context, cultural context, and the problems with water and how this relationship with women is with women and water. The second chapter is dealing with water from the cosmovision of the Nahuatl people, women. And the first one is to specify what does water mean for women from their own cosmovision. Speak about water and people. What is this dynamic like of water and community life? And for example, for me, I have these chapters could be collected in one. The cosmogonic practices before the problematics of water and how these defense processes of water are looking like. In chapter 3, which is the impact of the depredation of water on women, how it impacts how it impacts women and the cosmovision of people and the systems and ways of life. So here you have to do contact with pollution and this living and how they feel about these problems, what damages exist from this pollution and lack of water, and what are the causes from the perspective of women, and the repercussions in their life, of course. And the fourth chapter is going to talk about the strength and resilience of women for the situations of lack of water. And it has to do with these local practices that keep these knowledges, this ancestral knowledges alive. And it has to do with processes of community organization, like taking care of sources of water and community sources before before pollution. How these processes, intergenerational processes exist. And in chapter 5, it's going to broach the different ways to reconstitute women for the Nahuatl people. This is more focused to the strategy, the action strategy. So it's kind of looking into the ancestral knowledge as an important aspect for caring for this situation and taking care of women and their feelings and how to provide an impulse to these practices and the concrete proposals of community actions, family actions for taking care of taking care of them in the defense, and to establish which actors are key for taking for making agreements and achieving concrete actions. That's what I have been working on so far. It's still in construction. Excellent, wonderful. So now that you have this, moving forward, don't forget to put this in the Moodle so that the session is wonderful for you. Thank you so much, Jesse. Thank you.
I don't know, Doman, do you want to share? No? Okay.
Sorry, I'm not ready.
Okay, it's okay. But you don't need to be ready. Is a training. If you want to talk a little, how do you want to organize the chapters? Because the chapters is the same version of the goals and the objectives, but in another kind of presentation. It is okay. It's a good opportunity to, if you want. I don't want to put you, but if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just a little because I haven't really been working I haven't been so focused to it yet. I think I've been doing more reading still, so I'm not so focused. But I think it's very, as I've presented earlier, like I think I have an outline already, but it's very I still very participative, so I really need to get back to the community and get the agenda approved or affirmed as well, so that it's really an organic, uh, collaborative, and co-creative process.
Okay, yes, yes. What do you think, Tuneni? In this case, it is possible to have I don't know, a provisional version of the chapters and not the final version? ¿Qué piensas?
Sí, que no está la mayor Lorena, pero porque tal vez,
I'm so sad that my
tal vez la mayor
I'm so
Lorena
sad that Maria Lorena isn't here because maybe she proposed the chapters, but don't worry or get stressed. The idea is that the people from the communications people can learn from your research topic and what are those points that you're going to develop. I don't know, or don't get worried. It's not the final evaluation. I'm going to study the access to education of the originary women of my community. Maybe there's a first part that will be the situation of my community, those points, general points that you're going to develop finally, you're going to finally develop.
Sí, sí, I think for pedagogical effects, you can put the goals of your projects as chapters, okay? I don't remember, you have 3 or 4 specific objectives?
I have 3 objectives.
Okay, you can say
Yes.
for the workshop, I have 3 chapters, okay? And is a process, and perhaps it is okay, ¿no? ¿Cierto, Donel? Como decir, tengo estos 3 capítulos.
Just by saying I have these 3 chapters and these are the ones that they're under construction.
Hola, están los niños, los nuevos investigadores.
I have new researchers in town.
Y la de Jessie también, maravilloso.
And Jesse's as well. We have the new researchers coming around.
Somebody else want to share with the group? Naina, do you want to share your idea for your chapters?
Yeah, I'm also working on it, but still not clear because my writing is more like academic research. So I organize this as a yeah. So it's on the process.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nai. Yes, I think it's a little early to have the chapters for many of you. I want to check, for example, Mimin, how do you feel with this request of your chapters?
Actually, teacher, I think I I'm in the process, but I still need more time. There's a time conflict with me I'm facing currently because the university they changed the schedule, so I still haven't back to Myanmar, but I'm still working what I can. So I'm sorry for that. But I will try my best to be on time, so I will back very soon and do everything. Yes, teacher. But I still working the process how to like planning on like trying to get there who I'm going to meet and what I'm going to do. Yes, teacher. So I'm not ready yet to share my chapter to you now. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mimit. Es que, ¿sabes qué creo en nuestro caso, Dunen?
Then they think that they've made progress in their protocols. Most of them have their protocols with all the parts. And in their protocol, they have everything. I mean, they don't have the chapters, but the objective. And I feel that they spent too much time trying to put that protocol together. So what I'm thinking is, a solution for this would be that they can you share your protocols or research protocols because they've made progress on that? I don't know. I feel that
Está un poquito, pero no sé, pues no sé, tú eres la que...
No, sí, no, tranquila. Yo creo que incluso si
I think that
se pone la propuesta,
we put the
todo lo que
proposal
termina hoy
of the titles that you have right now
muy corto.
and a small summary about it. A small summary would be.
Sí, tampoco la idea
Could that be? Can we work with that?
que deben dedicar al trabajo.
I mean, I don't want to take away time from the time that they have to be working on their project, but it's just for the communication process or the communication team to know what they're working on, to put a strategy for them as well.
Listo. Bueno, I think we can stop end the session now, and you can think about your abstract or executive summary, or even it's not very difficult to remember the specific objectives and goals, and to propose. For example, if you have 3 specific objectives, you can propose 3 chapters, okay? 1 chapter for the first objective, the second chapter, and something like this for the moment. And after, and during this process, you can negotiate with the communities, yes, the co-creative perspective, yes, because if you propose these chapters and after, when you are with the community, you are dealing with the it's not the good possibility to establish this chapter, okay? I think it's a good opportunity for the moment. Yes? Well, thank you very much. Dunencita, ¿quieres hacer unas palabras de cierre? Ya que no estás mambiando.
Tune, if you want to close it out, please.
No me abra los ojos. Aprovechándote
Let's.
porque hablamos de tu territorio.
We're talking about your territory
de procesos
and about the enemy and the process and we just keep talking about the same territories, and I feel that it was very important that they can give us a few words to close it out.
Sí, bueno, les cuento que
Yes, let me tell you that
yo soy también de la escuela de la profesora Ángela.
I'm also from Miss Angela's class. I was under her tutelage as well, and I had a big deception because when I wrote with the hope of being able to do the faculty of law, I was talk about the indigenous people, the laws about indigenous people, and I found that in that moment, the scenario that was at birth to where the topics were not of importance. It was just a class that I was that they spoke about consulting, and that was it. And that was a 5-year class. In 5 years of study, just one class. So I was very disappointed. And in that study, I even actually thought about quitting the university. And one something that was at least helpful for my mission was the whole point of studying private law when you have so many inequities in the communities in the territory, or studying international commerce when there are other needs in their indigenous towns, when we have other needs in indigenous towns. So that's when I met Miss Angela, and she was, since I had a scholarship, I had to do a lot of work of filing, accompanying processes. And I remember that she was taking attendance of who was coming to enroll to our class, and that's how I met her. And that's important when you have this alliance with the academia, with teachers like her. And how they get that information. So for them to have this community and with this methodology, and this is a very pretty work that is done. And I feel that it's a big contribution for women and the girls, because this pathway can continue to be helpful, and where more people get to know it, it's easier for them to make it work. So I want to thank for this opportunity when we have all of this indigenous coming together, and we could be able to share, get to know each other, and be able to live and dream about a community free of violence within our own languages. And that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Gracias, mi querida Dunen. Bueno, a mí me da pena molestar a Dunen, pero yo
All
creo
right,
que
I'm
vale
sorry
la
to
pena si lo
discuss
logras
it
en
with
la
Lorena, with
exposición 6.
Dunan. If you have in the next session, it will be nice to have this session. She just had her baby as well.
Sino que está la pasión por la investigación
So that's where you have
intercultural.
the passion for the intercultural research that we have.
Entonces me da vergüenza.
So I'm always, I feel ashamed when I ask Dunan to participate. If this works for you, it's also very nice to have you. If you can be here for session 6, to have this conversation, around the work that you've done. That has to do with, that's a very impressive work, a very social work. She's the one who opened all this reflection around this in this country. Thanks to Dunan. So,
Thank you very much for this session. Thank you, Laura, Paula, and everybody. And I hope we will have a good weekend and see you next week. Okay? Bye
Gracias,
bye.
un abracito.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias,
buen día.
Bye.
Bye.